Saint of the Day. May 6th. Saint François de Laval, Bishop of Quebec. Born, April 30, 1623, Montigny-sur-Avre, Perchy, Kingdom of France. Died, May 6, 1708, aged 85, Quebec, Viceroyalty of New France, French colonial empire. Venerated in Roman Catholic Church. Beatified, June 22, 1980, Pope John Paul II. Canonized, April 3, 2014, Pope Francis. Feast, May 6. Shrines, Notre Dame de Quebec Cathedral, Quebec City, Quebec, Canada. Saint Francis Xavier de Montmorency Laval, commonly referred to as François de Laval, was the first Roman Catholic bishop of Quebec, appointed when he was 36 years old by Pope Alexander VII. Laval was a member of the Montmorency family and was one of the most influential men of his day. He was a candidate for canonization by the Catholic Church after his death and was beatified in 1980 by Pope John Paul II. On April 3, 2014, Pope Francis made him a saint by equivalent canonization. Born at Montigny-sur-Avre, France on April 30, 1623, François de Laval was the son of Hugues de Laval and Michel de Péricard. He was a scion of an illustrious family, whose ancestor was baptized with Clovis at Reims, and whose motto reads, Tu es au premier Baron Chrétien. Laval studied under the Jesuits at La Flèche and learned philosophy and theology at their College of Clermont, Paris, where he joined a group of fervent youths directed by Father Bagot. This congregation was the germ of the Seminary of Foreign Missions, famous in the history of the Church, and of which the future Seminary of Quebec was to be a sister institution. Because his two older brothers died in battle, François inherited the family title and estate. But he resisted all worldly attractions, and his mother's entreaties, and held fast to his vocation. Laval was ordained a priest in 1747 and served as archdeacon at Évreux. The renowned Jesuit missionary, Alexander de Rhodes, having obtained from Innocent X permission to appoint 3 vicars apostolic for the East, chose Laval for the Tonquin mission. The Portuguese court vehemently opposed the plan, and from 1655 to 1658 Laval lived at the Hermitage of Seine, in the practice of piety and good works. This solitude was a fitting preamble to his apostolic career. He was finally appointed Vicar Apostolic of New France, with the title of Bishop of Petria, and was consecrated on December 8, 1658, by the Papal Nuncio Piccolomini in the Abbatial Church of St. Germain-des-Prés, Paris. He landed in Quebec on June 16, 1659, which then counted barely 500 inhabitants. In fact, the whole French population of Canada did not exceed 2,200 souls. Laval's first report to the Pope, dated 1660, expresses admiration for the natural grandeur of the country, courage, hope for the future, and praise for the zeal of the Jesuits. From the outset, Bishop Laval had to assert his authority. Most of the colonists hailed from Rouen, and the Archbishop of Rouen, François de Champvallon, resented that he did not have jurisdiction over the colony. Laval claimed his jurisdiction over New France directly from Rome. This conflict, which caused trouble and uncertainty, was ended when the See of Quebec was erected in 1674 as a regular diocese depending solely on Rome. But the hardest struggle, the trial of a lifetime, was against the liquor traffic with the natives. The civilization and salvation of the Aboriginals and the welfare of New France depended on finding a solution to this problem. The challenge was made more arduous by the lawless greed of the white trader, and the dependency on alcohol that developed among the natives because of it. After exhausting all persuasive measures and consulting the Sorbonne theologians, Laval forbade liquor traffic under the pain of excommunication. The civil authorities pleaded with him to lift the ban in the interest of commerce. First, Governor Pierre Dubois d'Avogar relaxed the severity of the prohibition, but, through Laval's influence at court, it was fully reinstated. At this time the Diocese of Quebec comprised all of North America, except New England, the Atlantic seaboard, and the Spanish colonies to the west. Laval's zeal embraced all whom he could reach by his representatives or by his personal visitations. In season and out of season, he made long and perilous journeys by land and water to minister to his flock. His fatherly kindness sustained the far-off missionary. "His heart is always with us," writes the Jesuit Dablin. Laval was a protector and guide to the religious houses in Quebec and Montreal. He was also deeply attached to the Jesuits, his former teachers, and recalled to Canada in 1670 the Franciscan Recollets, who had brought the gospel to the region in the first place. With the baptism of Garakantai, the renowned Iroquois man, an efficacious promoter of the true faith was secured among his fellow countrymen. Laval's foresight made him foster the most cherished devotions of the Church, belief in the Immaculate Conception, the titular of his cathedral, and the cult of the Holy Family, which flourished on Canadian soil, encyclical of Leo XIII. He was a devout client of Saint Anne, whose shrine at Beaupré was rebuilt in 1673. Laval was also one of the foremost promoters of education. At that early period, with a handful of colonists and scanty resources, he organized a complete education system, primary, technical, and classical. His seminary, established in 1663, and minor seminary, established in 1668, trained candidates for the priesthood. An industrial school, founded at Saint Joachim, 1678, provided the colony with skilled farmers and craftsmen. Laval gave all of his possessions to these institutions, especially the seminary. These institutions eventually became the university that today bears his name. In view of the future, he built the seminary on a relatively large scale, which excited the envy and criticism of Governor Frontenac. No regular parishes had been established yet, so the clergy were attached to the seminary, from where they were dispatched for parochial or mission work. The tithes, after much discussion and opposition, had finally been limited to the 26th bushel of grain harvested, an enactment still legally in force in the province of Quebec. These tithes were paid to the seminary, which, in return, provided laborers for Christ's vineyard. Laval's patriotism was remarkable. The creation of the Sovereign Council in lieu of the Company of New France was greatly due to his influence and helped ensure the proper administration of justice, the progress of colonization, and the defense of the country against the ever-increasing ferocity and audacity of the Iroquois. Exhausted by 30 years of a laborious apostolate, and convinced that a younger bishop would work more efficaciously for God's glory and the good of souls, Laval resigned in 1688. His successor, Abbé de Saint-Vallier, a virtuous and generous prelate, did not share all his views regarding administration. Laval might have enjoyed a well-earned retreat in France, but after having returned to France he realized he preferred to remain in the country that was the scene of his labors. To Laval's sorrow, the seminary was burned twice, 1701 and 1705, and rebuilt through his energy and generosity. The end was near. He spent his final years in greater retirement and humility and died on May 6, 1708, in the odor of sanctity. His reputation for holiness, though somewhat dimmed after the conquest, revived during the 19th century. The cause for his canonization was introduced in 1890 and reached its completion on April 3, 2014, when Pope Francis signed a decree recognizing his sanctity in equivalent canonization.